Hi, hello, welcome everybody. I'm your host, and welcome to Poke Analytics. Here, I cover singles and double battles, VGC tournaments, and going over Pokemon news and leaks. So pop in your earbuds, just relax, and listen to some Pokemon. Well, hello everyone. I am your host, and I have two special guests with me this time. Now I have Jake from the last episode.
Hello, everyone.
Fun. I Jake was in the last episode, and I think I'm going to have him in more in the future. So keep you guys posted for that. But we also have another special guest with us. He's the Vancouver 2022 Vancouver Regional Champion, and he got fifth place at the 2023 World Champions for VGC. Please welcome Adula Mahoda. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
Nah, it's all good. Oh, what's up, yo?
How have you guys been enjoying the Indigo Disc? Because during my playthrough, I loved it. I was having just a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, I think it's the story of it was really fun. I'm really excited for the new returning Pokemon there. There's a lot of them that I've already loaded into the builder here, so I think by and large, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I did with the Kitakami expansion.
Oh yeah, true. When I played Kitakami, I was a little disappointed from it, only because like the map was a little bit small, and after you beat the story, there's not really that much to do in the game. Well, with the Indigo Disc, there is so much in that game. You got the BBQs, which give you just a lot of items, and then like the item maker is just phenomenal. And yeah, like you said, we this is the most like the returning Pokemon are way more than the returning Pokemon from Kitakami. We barely had any Pokemon coming back from Kitakami that actually impacted VGC, but now with the Indigo Disc, we got just so many Pokemon that are returning that it could actually make a big splash in the scene. Especially with the new Pokemon, like I am loving Raging Bolt right now. I think Raging Bolt is actually going to be very good in Regulation F, especially like I think it was Skrull VGC, credit to him. He made a point about Raging Bolt about how it was kind of like designed to beat Urshifu Torn because it has a type matchup and Thunderclap just kills both of them, especially Urshifu on the weaker special defense side.
I think Raging Bull's a cool one. I definitely think Raging Bull's gonna. It'll definitely change the game. I don't know how huge of an impact it'll have, but it'll definitely have an impact. Uh, otherwise,
Yeah.
there's some really cool ones. I really love Instant. That's my dirty pleasure. I really love Instant, and I'm very happy he's back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. I've been every team I've built so far has had an Incineroar
Yeah.
on it, and they've all. It's just the perfect Gloomon holds any team together.
hmm
Yeah, I guess
I'm
we can
really
start
enjoying
out.
having him back.
I guess we can
Start off
start
with the
talking
top.
about Incineroar, like we talked about in the last episode. We start with the Keen of VGC Incineroar, and we when in the last episode we were guessing that Incineroar wasn't really going to get buffed that much, and then they gave it Helping Hand for some reason. In last episode, some Jake, you said like they don't care what Pokemon is at top as long as it's like a fan favorite, and
Yeah,
Incineroar is
I
like
think
a
they.
really popular starter.
I think the Pokemon Company has always proven that they've got a few favorite Pokemon that they like to have on top, and they clearly like Incineroar to be good. Last generation they gave it Parting Shot. This generation they gave it Helping Hand, which of course I don't think is nearly as impactful as Parting Shot. I think um honestly Incineroar I have a hard time picking four moves to put on it, so I'm not sure if Helping Hand will be making it onto my sets, but just increasing the toolkit of the Pokemon with the best toolkit in the game is always entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, because like Incineroar got in Smash, so a lot of people who like came from Smash and or want to play VGC like it was really good at like it was really popular in the animes. It got in Smash. It just is a really popular starter type, so lots of people like may want to use it, and especially since it's very good. Not very good, like it's insanely good in VGC. I can totally see a lot of people being like, "Oh, Incineroar is one of my favorite Pokemon, so I'm going to use it, and it's going to help me win battles." Now we just got to know if Incineroar is good terastallizing, because like there isn't really like a best Terra for Incineroar. I think it's going to fluctuate with the meta game, because I don't think right now anyone can definitively say this is the best one.
I agree.
Yeah.
So it's all good. You if you want to talk about.
No, go ahead.
All right. I definitely think instant is definitely it's definitely like a point when you don't usually need a Terra. I think the beauty of instant is it's just as good off the field as it is in the field, right? Like it's having just as much of an impact, in the back of your party as it is when it's on the field. In my opinion, a lot of that's intimidate, a lot of that's its pivotability. So I think you usually don't have to Terra instant because the reality is if you're running a team with instant, you usually have a mon in the back to swap out with it. Um,
Yeah.
Real.
That
I think that's why it just hasn't hit discussion that much. Like a mon like Urshifu has to tear quite a lot. It's constantly taking beating from Fluttermane and other things like that, and other things. But instant is just such a good Pokemon that you want to retain its typing a lot of the time. Very very
Yeah,
good to
that's
swap
fair
in for
enough.
a lot of attack. And I just think
yeah, that's true.
instant the king's back. So
Yeah,
I
with
think yeah
with Fire Dark, I think it's already such a solid typing to begin with, and then the you don't really need a defensive option when the entire mon is designed around pivoting. I think you've got a great point about that.
exactly yeah.
Um, so I think that I've definitely been trying different Terra options on mine on Showdown, but you're right. I don't click the Terrastalize button
Mhm.
on Incineroar.
Yeah,
If Incineroar's
yeah,
in danger, he's switching out.
exactly.
Like,
So yeah, like
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I also think it'll depend on the set, right? Like I think there's a couple sets I have in mind where you run AV. I don't know what the nature is, but it's a plus BDF nature, and you run everything to beat Fluttermane. Because your team, I think one of the funniest things in this format is the best mons don't switch very well into Fluttermane, right? Like almost every mon in this current format loses to Fluttermane one on
yeah,
one. There are very very few Pokemon that
Fair, yeah.
completely beat Fluttermane, which is weird. We got even stronger with the power level, and Fluttermane ends up getting even stronger. It's a weird phenomenon, right? Like I think Chiampao saw this in Reg D. Like Chiampao was never extremely good, but come Reg D, like the buttons click and it just becomes this crazy powerhouse. It was on so many Worlds teams. I think in the same vein, I think Fluttermane is gonna have a crazy resurgence. I don't think Fluttermane ever fell off, but there
yeah,
were
No, it
there were definitely
didn't.
like there were a couple regionals right where it was like third or even fourth most used. But I do think Fluttermane is gonna be on the top of every team. Maybe behind Instant. To be fair, Instant's also the best mod in the game ever. So that's not saying much. But I definitely think
Mm-hmm.
it'll have a crazy resurgence because of the fact that nothing is switching into Moobas. Latias, the new Raging Bolt, a lot of the new dragons, like nothing is switching into Moobas anymore. And the other thing is, Amoonguss is like being completely shifted for Rillaboom on a lot of teams. Even fewer Fluttermane resists. So
Yeah,
I,
out
I
of
think I
all
think that's gonna be
the
interesting meta point. Like that's I don't think like it's gonna completely crack open like the trio of Urshifu, Fluttermane, Raging Bolt, and their interactions because I just think that they Fluttermane is just gonna completely take over, you know, as will the other
yeah.
two. Uh,
And
so
Incineroar is just basically like Pot of Greed. Like you have it on your team, and it just makes your entire team better just in a
right,
snap. Like it doesn't matter what team you have. You can have a Trick Room team, you can have a
mhm,
hyper offensive team, you can even have a rain team, and Incineroar is just so good on every team. And giving it Helping Hand could also make it harder for Pokemon to switch into Fluttermane. We had a buddy of
right,
ours talk about how Helping Hand is really good into Pokemon like Fluttermane. Like if there's a Choice Specs, Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam, Fluttermane, and it's boosted by a Helping Hand, Intimidate, Incineroar, there's not really any good switch-ins. You have to lead correctly, or you just have to sacrifice one or two Pokemon into that
I
Dazzling
totally agree.
Gleam Helping Hand.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's 100%. I think the metagame definitely feels very very volatile right now. I think I played in the best of one tournament that
Mm-hmm.
was yesterday. It was a really big one. It's like 200 players, something like that, and it felt so volatile. It definitely felt like lead correctly or lose. Um, And you bring up a good point with Helping Hand Fluttermane. I think yeah, they have introduced a lot of tools where you lead badly, you're completely screwed, right? Like these calm mindsets with Raging Bolt completely punish Urshifu leads, right? Like you want to lead Urshifu to punish something on their team, but they lead Raging Bolt, and now you're down a turn. It's like they get a free turn for absolutely nothing just because you led correctly. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I definitely think
100%. Because
you
if
know
you have an if you lead Urshifu Torn on your side,
mhm,
and they lead Raging Bolt, honestly, what are you going to do?
right,
The best hope that you have, like, even if you're Scarf and you try to U-turn out, then that's just a thunderclap from
right,
Raging Bolt, and because like with Incineroar, it just matches well so good into the meta game. Like maybe
mhm,
Urshifu Rapid might say something about that since it doesn't care about being intimidated since Surging Strikes always crit. And Surging Strikes obviously is super effective against Incineroar, so we might see Urshifu Rapid like pick up. Like Urshifu Rapid is really good into Incineroar, and it's also really good pairing with Incineroar. I think Incineroar, like, we have a tournament in January. I think it's on January 7th, like one of the major regionals. And I think it's going to have
Portland.
like a 70% usage or it's going to have around 60% usage for how
definitely.
amazing it is. And since they didn't take away any of its tools, it's still got knockoff, it's still got fake out, it's still got parting shot, and then you give it helping hand. Just put it on any team. It's kind of like the
Mhm,
Iron Hands right now because Iron Hands you just fit on any
exactly.
team, and now Incineroar can fit on every single team.
I would go as far as to say that Iron Hands was kind of Incineroar at home. That it was
Exactly.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
we were really using Iron
definitely.
Hands because we didn't have Incineroar, and he
Definitely
was
what
the
it feels like.
closest thing.
I
And
definitely what it feels like. Yeah, right. Like fully agree with both of you. That's nothing. After trying Instant for the first time, it really did feel like that, right? Like everything I disliked about Iron Hands, Instant had, right? Like Instant has this perfect spread of moves where you have fake out and intimidate and knock off and parting shot. Like it's everything you wish Iron Hands was,
yeah,
which
true.
is kind of depressing to say, right? I love Iron Hands, but
yeah, me
y-
too. Yeah,
y-
Iron Hands carried me through a lot of my wins throughout all
Mhm,
of the first
exactly.
several regulations, and
I think
and
it's funny to say, yeah, like not only did Instant replace Iron
It's
Hands is
also
completely unusable right now due to the fact that Instant is so prevalent, right? Like
yeah,
it's you
true.
your AV gets knocked off, you get parting shot on. Like currently, to use, I feel like to use Iron Hands in this format, you have to be able to accept that Iron Hands will be useless for 2 turns at minimum. You know,
Mhm.
Instant comes in 1 turn, intimidates, fakes out, and then parting shots, and you're at -2, right? Like you haven't done anything for the past 3
True,
turns.
yeah.
yeah,
I really think
And I thought it was
Iron Hands
and I thought like with Iron Hands, it's like, oh, you can just drain punch, but since
exactly, exactly.
Incineroar is so bulky that drain punches won't really do that much to Incineroar. Yeah, you got the type advantage of drain punch versus a dark type, but Incineroar can just parting shot since it's faster than Iron Hands, and you really aren't putting any
Exactly.
speed investments into Iron Hands. You can intimidate, then parting shot, get away from Iron Hands, and then bring in a Pokemon that will take out Iron Hands, like a Fluttermane. If you knock off that Assault Vest, like Fluttermane will now
Exactly. No,
just
no, that's like
destroy Iron Hands.
fully agree. Like I definitely think that's the most deadly combo right now in the game. I definitely think your heart sinks when you see the parting shot into one of your Pokemon and realize they have the Fluttermane switching in. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think like
yeah.
Fluttermane, yeah, Fluttermane Instant is definitely defining the format. Like those 2 months in
Going to
tandem are
be on
just
like almost every
too
team.
strong, too strong together. They're just you
If you
know.
see a Fluttermane on the opposing team, you're seeing an Iron Hands.
Mhm. It's like yeah. No, it's just I, I'm honestly very, very excited for the format. Like, it honestly feels very breathtaking to see something like this. I
Mm-hmm.
play some of these ladder games, and I'm just blown away by how cool the new teams are. And I think Trick Room has completely evolved. The new Tachyon Cutter Mon. What was it called? Iron Crown.
Iron Crown. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
Iron
get to
Crown.
that Pokemon
Yeah.
later on, but
Right. Like, yeah. Like these new monsters completely expand the scope of the game. Like knockoff
mm-hmm.
introduces so many new variables, right? Like all of a sudden, goggles is not as much of an issue, right? Like Instant Amoonguss is a very strong combo right now because a lot of teams don't have Amoonguss answers, and on top of that, teams that do have Amoonguss sensors, you lose it as quick as a knockoff.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
Cresselia teams are completely stunned right now because you just get knocked off and then spored. And what do? Your Arsluna can't switch in because its Flame Orb is going to get knocked off.
Yeah.
There's just
And then,
it,
of course, there's also like the defensive synergy and love the Incineroar Amoonguss core. That's just Amoonguss wants nothing more than to switch out, and Incineroar wants nothing more than to switch in. And it's
exactly.
just like being able to. We saw what happened with Roaring Moon when they gave it knockoff, and it just skyrocketed in usage.
Yeah,
Like, and a lot of that, of course, was due to the introduction of the Ogrepin forms, and it being able to take any Ivy cudgels, it felt like. But there is the matter of just you could sit there just having your items stripped off one by a roaring moon, and Incineroar can do the same thing and sit there comfortably the whole time. So
Yeah, and
it's
even and Incineroar has like a 115 attack. You don't have to put any attack investments into it, and Incineroar is still going to do good damage with Flare Blitzes
yep,
or knockoff. And even if you don't put any attack investment, knockoff is such a good utility move. And a 130 base attack stat that knocks off your item coming from a 115 attack, that's gonna hit hard. That's like you said with Amoonguss and you knock off that rate, like you knock off that safety goggles. Now there isn't really anything stopping an Amoonguss from getting the spar off if you pair it with Incineroar, because like opposing grass types that might be immune to spore don't want to take a flare blitz from Incineroar. And then if you like you said,
exactly.
if you have safety goggles, Incineroar just knocks that off, and now you just
Mm,
spore and rage powder away.
I definitely agree. I definitely think like it feels like there's almost a perfect team. Almost, when we enter new formats, you get the new balance phase, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
there's just a team that's so strong that there's no point of playing anything else, right? Unless
yeah.
you are attempting to actively counter team it, there is no point of playing anything else other than what the baseline is. We've seen it a couple times. Reg B had a couple of those Iron Bundle
And
teams that felt so strong. Reg C had New Balance, right?
Yeah,
Reg D had
Rig C was the one where it had Arcanine, Palafin,
yeah,
Fluttermane, Amoonguss, Teen Lu,
Ting
and then your six Pokemon could be whatever.
right, and then Reg D we saw with the winning team Jean. A lot of winning teams were based around that style of team, right? And then we see Tornadus. I definitely think we're about to enter that phase. Like, give it a couple days. Someone's about to win a big tour with some ridiculously solid balance team, right?
And
Of
there
course,
was
with
a
the
Yeah, and there was a tournament after the second DLC came out. I don't know how long after it was, but it was like a couple days after first placement. The team that won first had an Incineroar on it, so it's already making a splash. Because like with Pokemon like Ogerpon, I said this in the last episode where with new toy syndrome, if you have like a new toy like Ogerpon or now with the new Paradox Mons, people don't know how to fight against it, people don't know how to use it. But with Incineroar, since you already had two generations where it was at the top, you know how to fight against it, and you definitely know how to use it. So Incineroar is it's just going to make a big splash on just every team on just in the tournaments, because people already know how to use it, so people are already loading it onto their teams. Now you can replace your fake out and intimidates with other mons. Maybe you don't want to use Salamence as much because Incineroar is just a better intimidator.
mm,
And
yeah,
again, it just pairs so well with what was already meta. Like
Mm-hmm.
with it pairs so well with Urshifu. It pairs so well with Fluttermane. We were using so many tools to try to replicate a fraction of what Incineroar can do, and now suddenly all those teams have so much more room to breathe. Where you don't really need to wonder whether or not you want Hisui and Arcanine or Iron
Yeah,
Hands because you've got one mon that
yeah.
does both, and
that's what
hundred percent.
that's
I almost forgot about that. Now, since Incineroar is back as an intimidator that is a fire type, no, I don't think anyone's going to use Arcanine as much anymore, because Insui and
Yeah.
Arcanine won like 6 regionals, and now it's going to completely drop off. Now, since Incineroar is a fire intimidator, but also has Fake Out and Parting Shot, and it has the exact same attack as Arcanine.
Yeah.
and it
So
has
yeah, I definitely my bad. If
and
you
it
want to
has just
proceed.
as a better typing than Arcanine.
Yeah. No, like I definitely think it's funny. I think a lot of the newer kids were saying something like, Hisui Arcanine is actually going to give Instant a tough time, right? Because it has good matchup
No.
into it, right? Or it'll run Clear Amulet or something like that. And a lot of the old players were like, just wait on it. And it's really funny to see. Hisui Arcanine is nowhere to be seen. The tour you were talking about, the large tour, there was it was about 150 people, large. Incineroar had 104 people use it, and Hisui Arcanine had a total of 2 people using it. So it's just completely plummeted. I think it's very unfortunate to see. Like people are very excited that we get a Gen 1 that's relevant in VGC. But
Mhm.
dude, Incineroar has just completely fried it. It's just
Now we're going to see more Pokemon now more than ever use items like Clear Amulet and Covert Cloak.
exactly.
Because yeah, like you could knock off the Clear Amulet, but if you lead together, then that Pokemon is not going to be intimidated. That Pokemon is not going to
Exactly.
be intimidated. Because like Jake said, it pairs so well with everything. Fluttermane, you can pair it with Landers and have dual intimidates that can just keep switching back and just keep intimidating. Like Urshifu Rapid, Rillaboom. Um, just there's just a lot of Pokemon that it just pairs so well with that are already doing good. And we could keep on talking. We're already 20 minutes into this episode and we could still keep talking about the limit. Like it's endless what we can do with Incineroar because just how versatile it is, how good it is. um those who do not like with Game Freak, those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. We're going to see Incineroar be the number one used Pokemon again. It was the number one most used Pokemon in like Gen 7, and then it was the number one most used Pokemon in Gen 8. Like it has won every single world that it has been legal in, and we're going to see that again. 2023 worlds, I'm calling it. Incineroar is definitely going to win, especially with all these tools.
I
I
think that's like
oh
the
you talk
safest
about
take ever. I think the other thing too
yeah.
is like they've buffed inner focus, for instance, as like here's an anti incineroar ability that it blocks intimidate and fake out, and it's like that's great and all, but what do they put it on? Dragonite, and it's like, well, the flutter main that I'm obviously pairing my incineroar with will make short work of that. It's like you can't hit me with extreme speed, and I can hit you with a moonblast. So it's like there's the tools that we have to deal with Incineroar do not deal well with what its common partners are shaping up to be. So I think, of course,
Maybe
it's really early in the meta. It's going to settle over time, but right now, I don't see anything stopping Incin from doing what Incin does best.
I had two Pokemon that I thought of that could fit on a team within the Incineroar meta. Milotic, because you really do not want to drop Milotic's any stats. Like you do not want to intimidate against Milotic. And then I thought Suicune, since you can't fake out Suicune, and Suicune can get like a tailwind up or just start scalding you. But like there's no Pokemon that definitively counters Incineroar, especially right now with Regulation F. There's just no mods that truly, truly, truly can say, "Oh yeah, I counter Incineroar." Well, maybe
Yeah,
Urshifu. I just thought maybe
no,
Urshifu could 100 could
yeah.
counter Incineroar, but Urshifu is already pretty good. It's like I said, it's just going to be a good pairing with. But yeah, we could basically go on all day about Incineroar, so I think we should just stop while we're ahead and just talk
Yeah,
about all the other
I agree.
mons.
I definitely think on the topic of other mons, I definitely think that I don't know if I'm disagreeing with you guys, but I definitely think that instant counterplay is definitely very relevant right now. When we talk about other mods, I think it's cool to see, right? Like how a mod can be at the top and yet have very straightforward counterplay. For example, Clear Amulet is quite a big counter on Incineroar, right? Like it makes Iron Hands usable because you can't parting shot, you can't intimidate,
But then you lose
and
the assault
also
vest.
but exactly, you did lose your Salt Vest, but I guess the point is like there are tools to beat Incineroar, and it definitely feels like that. I
Yeah,
look at, for example,
I don't think it's broken by any means.
yeah,
I don't think that
and
there's
I think that's what makes it fun, right? Like I like having a Pokemon that's fun to use. Like objectively, Incineroar is a fun Pokemon to use. It fits on a lot of teams. It makes team building easier. And it makes the meta more straightforward. I like having that when it's fun, and I compare it with the fact that I can still go anti meta, right? Like I've been trying Entei. Entei has been very very good into Incineroar.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't care about fake out and other things. I've been trying to clear Amulet Iron Hands with Swords Dance, right? You just set up on Instant, the lead Instant, and you're screwed because you just Swords Dance for free. I definitely think counterplay, um, like I think we're in for a really fun season because the counterplay is there, and yet we still have Incineroar, which is
I think the
very very cool
counter
to say in 2023.
I think the biggest counterplay to Incineroar, I think the biggest weakness to Incineroar is that because it's used so much, people know how to fight against it and people already know a game plan for it. That's its biggest weakness, not a Pokemon. Just it has a lot of experience going into it that more
Hmm.
people know how to go against it. And you just really, and it all comes down to the actual player against Incineroar of knowing how to mingle around Incineroar because, like, yeah, with Clear Amulet, maybe the intimidates won't be as impactful as before. Like you said, a Clear Amulet Iron Hands was pretty useful before people realized Assault Vest was so good on it. But we could see Clear Amulet Iron Hands come back. We could see a bunch of other Clear Amulets Pokemon come back. But with the impact of Incineroar, I love Chien Pao, but with the impact of Incineroar, Chien Pao is probably going to fall down a lot because you really don't want to give Incineroar you don't want to have a Pokemon pair with the defense drop when Incineroar is just using Flare Blitz a lot.
I've been rocking Pow Knight on the ladder now and then, and I think it's in a really good spot, honestly. I'd probably disagree with that because the Sword of Ruin next to a Dragonite that can't be intimidated and can't be hit with a fake out, and if you're running the sort of like Factura-esque set, then you could probably like fit a high horsepower on it to hit the Incineroars on a switch in, and I think that the Dragonite inner focus really helps it. And I think that as Sempra was saying with Entei as well, I think that inner focus mons are all going to have their time to shine now. I think that that was a really smart buff they made this past generation there, getting it buffing inner focus there. And I think that it's going to be a core part of counterplay. And it's really easy
Mm-hmm.
to put that in your team builder now because it's not like you're prepping for a matchup that you might not play. If I'm going to a tournament to play 9 rounds of Swiss, I know I'm playing against Incineroar 6 to 8 times. Like there's,
Yeah.
it's, it's gonna be there. So
I'm
Yeah.
excited. All I can say
me
is I'm
too.
excited.
Yeah, just to end off the Incineroar talking, cause like I said, we could go on forever. Incineroar is just such a good mon. It pairs well with so many meta Pokemon, and it just outclasses a lot of Pokemon outright. Like we're not going to see Arcanine anymore, as well, and the fact that it got Helping Hand means that I forget the word, but like just a lot of like powerful mons, like hyper offensive. That's the word I was looking for. Helping Hand could help hyper offensive teams even more. Like your Helping Hand, that Surging Strikes or that Dazzling Gleam or stuff like that. But Incineroar is just going to be a good mon. No, amazing mon. No, what am I saying? Not a good mon, an amazing mon. And I'm really excited to see what's this series is going to be. I forgot to mention at the start of this video, but we have a rule set for Regulation F coming in 4 days as of this recording, and we don't know if what Pokemon is going to be legal or not, because with Walking Wake and Iron Leaves, they haven't been legal yet. Um, and there is an event coming out tomorrow where you can catch Iron Hands and Walking Wake in a raid. But Jake did make a good point while we were talking the other day that it's so weird to make a Pokemon legal when it's only an event Pokemon. Because if you make Walking Wake and Iron Leaves not legal yet, then I don't see Iron Crown and Iron Boulder and Raging Bolt and Gorging Fire being legal as well. So we don't know if those Pokemon are going to make an impact because I really, really want to use Raging Bolt, but if it's not legal because Walking Wake isn't catchable yet, at least not from an event, then that's just very sad.
Okay, yeah. So I think for now I'm gonna go and continue to operate under the assumption that they're gonna be legal. It's better to just learn the tools now. If I can learn my counterplay around things like Raging Bolt with my Urshifus, then now's the time to do it anyway. If we get disappointed on Christmas, then we get disappointed. But I think at this point here, it's we should probably just operate this video under the assumption that everything probably other than Terrapagos is legal.
Yeah, totally. Terrapagos is a mythical, and mythicals have never been legal for serious tournaments. I mean, in Series 13, there were no more tournaments, so I think the people who are making the rules were just like, you know what, just have fun with it, guys. But mythicals aren't going
I
to be
thought
legal.
I thought Terrapagos was a restricted. I thought it was probably going to be
Terrapagos.
legal in the restricted meta there.
Oh, Terrapagos. I thought you were talking about that poison dude guy. No,
Oh no,
Terrapagos.
Terrapagos. Yeah,
Could Terrapagos count as like a restricted Pokemon?
I think it is. Yeah, that seems to be the assumption that the showdown folks are going around. I think everyone who's run a tournament right now is running it under the assumption that it's going to be a considered a restricted. Of course, they never tell you anything like that in game, so
Yeah.
we're waiting on further details. But with the base stats and ability that it has, I don't think that it's unfair to assume that that thing's a restricted, and I'm sure it will dominate the restricted meta to some extent because it seems like it's just better Rayquaza. But we'll have to wait on that one here and see.
Mhm. I think now we can talk about the new Pokemon. I think we could start with Archaludon. When me and Jake did the episode talking about last episode, we talked about Archaludon, and we were wondering how good it's going to be because like it's a Steel Dragon type. Um, it has great defense stat. It has a great defense stat. Oh, it had 125 special attack stat, but its really only problem is that 85 speed and that 65 special defense. We didn't know these stats when we were recording the episode, and so we were theory crafting. And then we came across the move Electro Shot, and because it's kind of like a meteor beam clone, except if it's in rain, it doesn't take a recharge turn. So we were like, oh, if it doesn't take a recharge turn in rain, then it's probably going to be like 80 base power, maybe 90 if we're lucky. And then the game came out, and Electro Shot is 130 and 100% accurate, especially since with how dominant rain is. um Electroshot is so easy to just put on any Archaludon set as well. I've seen Archaludon run Assault Vest on Archaludon because Archaludon doesn't really have any good status moves, but it has a variety of good special attacking moves. Like it has Draco Meteor, it has Aura Sphere for coverage, and then Electro Shot with the Flash Cannon Draco Meteor. Some people have been running Assault Vest, and especially with Stamina, those make a really good pairing together. But what do you guys think about Archaludon?
Well, one thing I'll say is 65 special defense is only 3 points lower than Iron Hands, and Iron Hands has been fine in a Flutter meta where it's weak to it. So I don't think that I don't, as low as that is, I its other stats are all decent. I think that it's been performing decently well on the ladder. I'm not sure. I'm sure Sempra can probably come in with a bit more data about how it did at the most recent um, grassroots tournaments there. But I think that there's definitely some potential to this mon, especially considering how, as you said before, how dominant Rain has been in the entire Scarlet and Violet era.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it's definitely interesting. Like, I definitely think it's kind of what Rain kind of wanted,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Like Rain wants that steel type to be able to, abuse the rain. And no, not take super effective from fire types. And you like that setup. I would consider it setup kind of when you're spamming that whatever that move is.
Yeah,
I consider
electro shot. Yep.
it's a setup in a way. But otherwise, it is kind of what Rain wanted. And Instant is kind of what Rain wanted. And you really like Instant. I think the funniest thing about Instant is, I remember when I was first building Rain for Worlds, and one of the first discussions we had was the fact that she would probably be pretty good on Rain because of the
Mhm.
typing in specific,
Yeah.
and that Volcarona would probably be pretty good as well for its utility on Rain. And the funny thing is, you kind of got Instant, which ends up doing both, which we really needed. Um, I think Rain is going to take off. I don't think Archalon is going to be the catalyst. Like I don't think it it by itself is very strong. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I guess it's
I
promising, but
think
I
it
just
could
think
have its place. I think it has its place. Like I could see
Mhm.
it being on some teams. I definitely could see it winning a regional, but winning a national or winning
Yeah.
worlds, winning if this Pokemon may not be a world winning Pokemon in and of its own. I think it would have to be in the meta for quite a while before people realize like how good it could be, because
Mhm.
it makes an insanely good pairing with Tornadus. Being able to Tailwind, being able to Rain Dance, and then Bleak Wind Storm, hitting 100% accuracy in rain, hitting the fighting types that might scare our Chaladon away. I totally see this on a bunch of Torn hyper offensive teams. Oh yeah, I forgot it has body press too, so 130 defense could help it out. But yeah, like you said, I don't think it will like overrun the meta game, since there are some rain abusers or rain Pokemon that you might want to use instead. Like I don't
Mhm.
see why you would want to use Archaludon over Urshifu as a rain abuser, you know?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like even Golden Go as a steel type, right? I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think Archelon. It might have some kind of niche outside of Rain, right? Like when you consider Komao, right? Its regional win came from eye defense body press when its whole thing is it's supposed to be a super crazy attacker, but it was very
Yeah.
very defensively minded. And I think it could be in that sense it could be cool, right? Like on someone's team, right? Like it has Dialga typing, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it
Because
has
you
very very nice
use
coverage for the meta,
because you used Golden Go on rain teams
right?
before, and so would you think that a Golden like Archelon could be on par with Golden Go, or do you think if you want to steal type abusing rain, you just keep on going back to that Golden Go?
See, I just think it's very tough to do with Golden Gold Dust. Like it's a very unfair fight to climb, right? Like it's like asking Chiyu to do what Instant does because of the same typing, right? Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they're definitely two steel types that work very well in rain, but Golden Go just has a lot more to offer, right? Like I think one of the coolest things with Golden Go is how it pairs with rain, right? Um
Mm-hmm.
Golden Go's main weaknesses end up being fire and ground types, right? And rain completely fries those. So you completely remove that disadvantage, right? I think one of the weird things with Archelon's typing is that you are a steel type, but none of the benefits of being a steel type, right? Like you have all the negatives of being a steel type, and because of the fact that you're dragon type, you don't even care that heat waves are reduced by half, right? Like it doesn't even matter um to you all that much.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that it's kind of tough to compete with Golden Go and are like
Because I
it's just
just
very tough to compete with Golden Go. Like I just think case in point, it's very very tough to deal with Golden Go. That I find it very difficult to see any world where the thing can keep. I forgot the name of the mon.
Archaludon.
Archelon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Archelon. I doubt there's very many scenarios where Archelon completely erases Golden Go. Like I'm sure there's going to be situations right like this. You wouldn't consider Basque Legion as a mon that did well at Worlds, but it definitely it got top 64, right? Like multiple top 64s. I think it got two of them, something like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Um,
and that's the thing, you look at the like, it's got stats, like, it's got a
mhm,
wall of stats, it's got good typing and a decent move set. I don't think this mod is gonna go and revolutionize the
right.
meta or anything,
But someone's
but
gonna
if
find a
some
way
of
to do
the
something with it.
Yeah, exactly. If I sat down at a regional across from Jamie Boyd again and he had one of these on his teams, I'd go,
Exactly.
"Oh, that makes sense." Of
Right.
course, some out of the box team builder came up with a way to use it,
Mhm.
but I think that it'll take some legwork to get this thing to work. And I don't doubt that it can happen, but I don't think that it's gonna be a staple for rain teams anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
And going
yeah,
from
like
one dragon type that may have a niche to another dragon type that may have a niche. When I first saw Hydrapple, I was excited because it actually has decent stats. Because like Diplin has not that great stats. Yeah, it could hold the Eviolite, but it's not doing anything in return. I want to use Hydrapple because Fickle Beam is such an interesting move on Hydrapple. Fickle Beam is like 80 base power, but then it has a 30% chance to go that 160, making it even stronger than Draco Meteor. And we've seen with Scald has a 30% chance to burn, but those 30% chances happen more often than you realize, and Scald has been such an amazing move. I really am excited to see Hydrapple, but I don't think Hydrapple will be used as much, especially if Fluttermane gets better and better over time.
Yeah, I think like the 44 base speed is something that's interesting for trick room teams, of course. Like I think that that's nice and slow. It underspeeds a lot of the meta. But I just hate the variance of moves like Fickle Beam. Like I have a hard enough time with Bleakwind Storm. I think that's a bad move. I of course I've run it at every event that I've played Tornadus with, but I think that it's feels really bad for both sides of the field when so much of the game is like, well, does Bleakwind hit? Does it get a speed drop? It's like, oh, it got the speed drop on the King Gambit. Look at that. I think Fickle Beam's kind of the same way, where it might feel pretty bad to lose when you're in a rather secure situation when suddenly this thing pulls out a 160 base power attack on a random roll. Um, but that being said, I've run Draco Meteor and it misses 100% of the time when I click it. So Fickle Beam might be better when it because rather than missing some of the time, it'll just be an 80 base power.
Yeah, because like Grass Dragon is an interesting typing, especially in this format. Like being able to very well take those surging strikes from Urshifu and being able to hit back with a Leaf Storm is useful. But yeah, it has a special defense stat of 80, so you're not switching into any special moves, especially with Fluttermane around. Its special attack is pretty good, and that super sweet syrup is also pretty good. Like it does, even though it only happens once per battle. We could see a bunch of Pokemon that don't have perfect accuracy moves go into the fray. Like maybe you pair it with Landorus, and then Rock Slide is 100% accurate, but yeah, I don't know what really you would want to pair Hydropple with in this regulation where it's actually useful.
Yeah, I think with like of its abilities, I think Regenerator might be the one I'd be more likely to slot onto it there. Just
Uh-huh.
because I like Regenerator as an ability. But yeah, I think that there's potential in this Mon. I don't. I haven't felt the urge once so far to load it into a team builder and see what it can do.
yeah, I think dragon types are just completely booked, right? Like there's too many good dragon types right
Yeah.
now. Too many good dragon types. And Hydrapple ends up being a mon that has a niche that's not even, you know, cool enough that
Mm-hmm.
uh it, you almost can't warrant running it over other dragons, right? I think I
I
wish
think
Hydrapple
that's
had
very fair
potential, right?
assessment.
But I definitely think that when you want a dragon to have to do something, you certainly don't look at Hydrapple
Yeah,
first.
that's the thing. We're looking at like
Yeah,
10 really good dragon types, and this is an
exactly.
okay dragon type, and it's
Right.
like, well,
Exactly,
uh,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I fully agree. It's like calling Iron Hands bad. It's like a very wrong thing. Like it's like calling Palafin bad, right? It's not bad. It's just Urshifu unfortunately is far far superior.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing. There's a
So
niche for Palafin still. Like Palafin has a way stronger priority attack than Urshifu off a higher
yeah,
base attack,
exactly.
but it doesn't make up for the fact that Urshifu always crits through protect. It's
Yeah,
just like
100%.
there's
And
that.
it doesn't have to swap out. It has
Yeah,
you like that secondary typing in a lot of situations. It's just
yeah.
it's
There's
just unfortunate. I just think it's unfortunate that they actually introduced like a cool concept. I like the concept of them on. Figure me
yeah.
actually
I
pretty
think it would
cool.
have been really fun in
It would have been
Regulation
cool.
B. Yeah.
I would have
Yeah,
loved if it was in
or Reg 8
regular
even.
if it yeah, I was about to say if it was in regulation A, I would have
Yeah.
loved using it on
It's
this
been very,
team
very fun.
because
Yeah.
it could be good. You could have some uses on Trick Room teams. Maybe you would like pairing it with Armor Rouge to get that fire grass coverage, and then with the Draco Meteors. Oh, sorry, Fickle Beam coming in. This Pokemon could be great in Regulation E, but it usually just like a lot of Pokemons that would be great in Regulation A or Regulation B. They come out too late, so now there's no reason to
Mhm.
use it.
Exactly. Very, very unfortunate, yeah. When Game Freak releases a lot of these my bad, I'm stuttering, but when Game Freak releases a lot of these, what is it, updates? Like these,
Yeah,
Crown
updates
Tundra,
and
all these
returning Pokemon.
yeah, I really wish that they'd, kind of start doing ban lists. Like, n
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it, right? I definitely think, like,
I know what you're
we should
talking
have had a
about.
format.
Like, I
Yeah,
know
we
what you're
definitely should have had a
talking
format where it
about.
should have been Reg A mons plus these, remove all the paradox, for example. Like, that should be a format, right? I definitely think it gives us a lot more variety, and then you realize that these mons like Hydrapple are good mons, right? Like, I could imagine it in a format without Fluttermane, and Iron Hands is the king, right? There's no Urshifu. Hydrapple could be really damn good, right?
Yeah, if there
With
was a
a
format where Palafin Balance was the
exactly,
team to beat, then Hydrapple would be
exactly. All of a
a
sudden, Hydrapple has a
lock for every
crazy
Trick
niche.
Room team. Yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
crazy niche.
But
Yeah,
I know
very
what you're
unfortunate.
talking about. I know what you're talking about, Adula, because like where you say like, "Hey, let's ban the top 30 most used Pokemon in the
Mhm.
game," because like there are some
I don't
Pokemon
think exactly like that, right? Like
because
it wasn't regulation. It was like they did this before, right? In the past.
yeah, in
yeah,
Sword
in
and
Sword and
Shield.
Shield they did it briefly,
Yeah,
yeah.
it ended up not being very good, right? Like I guess what I
But
was
I
wondering
think
is,
they did it wrong. I think that
mhm,
the idea of going, "Let's get the most used Pokemon and take them out," isn't the right approach. I think that if you wanted to do that, it would be via base stats. Say everything 600 and over is banned for this meta.
that's fair.
And
Like I just think like easy way to do them is just there's paradox, there's the base mons like from regulation A, there's
yeah.
paradox, there's Kitakami, and then there's
Mhm.
this one. I think there should be formats where it's just Kitakami and just paradox. For example, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think
that could be very neat.
all of a sudden Metagross is good. All of a sudden, all these really cool ones are really strong now.
Yeah, because
I think you could shake up formats, right? Like it's
there are so many Pokemon that are coming back that I would absolutely love to use like
yep,
Hydrapple. We can get into more of that later, but some examples off the top of my head is Rhyperior. I would absolutely love to run a weakness policy I would love to run a weakness policy set with Rhyperior, but with so much power creep back, there's just it's really, really, really hard to use Rhyperior. And like Excadrill was amazing. Like I could see it being amazing in Regulation A paired with Tyranitar, but now Excadrill's absolutely terrible. There are
yeah.
just
No,
so many Pokemon coming back that I think now's a good transition to talk about Pokemon that are returning back. That are returning back. When we talked about in the last episode, we talked about how Smeargle was the most threatening Pokemon other than Incineroar coming back to the DLC. I don't know if it have will have a place in the DLC because if Urshifu Rapid does pick up usage, Urshifu Rapid just completely shuts down Smeargle. And
Yeah,
I think I think Smeargle has dominated restricted metas in the past, and I think that underestimating Smeargle is typically a bad idea, especially when we're presumably in the next couple weeks going to have global challenges announced, where they're closed team sheet best of one ladder tours with points on the line. If you load up your play Pokemon page, there's all the info on how many points global challenges are going to award. So we know they're planned. We know they're going to happen. And if there's global challenges being played with Smeargle, we're going to see some wacky sets. And they've introduced some broken moves in the past two gens that Smeargle hasn't had a chance to use. We've never had Smeargle in a format with Decorate. We've never had Smeargle with this new what's the fire
protect.
protect the burns people. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
there's some wacky stuff that Smeargle's going to be able to do, and I'm
Also,
not sure if I.
Also,
Oh, continue.
thank goodness that Smeargle does not learn Revival Blessing. Thankfully, they're like, yeah, actually, let's not have Smeargle learn Revival Blessing because that would have been awful to deal against.
Yeah, I think Smeargle, another one where it's like a regulation A would be pretty good, but yeah,
Regulation A
the
would
base map format is too
dominate.
strong. Everything is too strong. Everything's too fast. Everything's too. At this point, it's counterplay to things, right? We have counterplay to Spore. Um, you know, there's no Dark Void, so there's no way to really make Smeargle a menace anymore. I definitely feel like in a lot of ways you kind of
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to kind of expect something from Smeargle, right? Like by being there, you kind of expect it to do something, outside of the box, if that makes sense. Um, I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah,
I definitely think it'll be good in global challenges, but I think unfortunately power creep is too strong, and not learning revival blessing, not learning dark void, Wyguard not being as good, like it kind of just struggles.
I
Hmm.
agree with
I think
that.
there's a
Yeah.
really really funny set running around. I don't mean to be mean to anybody. I just thought it was really funny. When I compared it, right, it was Amungus's exact set on Smeargle. I thought it was really funny. It was Palm Puff Rage Pattern or Palm Puff Follow Me, Spore Protect, and I think like it kind of goes to show Smeargle kind of has just fallen off. It's
Yeah, but
there aren't any crazy gimmicks. It's not even like Geomancy anymore. It doesn't get Geomancy or anything crazy cool like that for global challenges. But
are there any?
Yeah.
Because yeah, we were talking about Smeargle in the last episode, like it was practically like it was going to be amazing in Generation 9. But like, yeah, you're right. With so much power creep, it's kind of hard for a lot of returning Pokemon that were once dominant to come back and make an impact. Because like, are there any Pokemon that have come? Like, how many Pokemon that have come back to VGC will actually make a huge amount of impact? Not to, like even not to the extent of Incineroar, but just will make an impact. Because I love Metagross, and I think Metagross will have its place because like it's just like it's a psychic type that can beat Fluttermane with those strong bullet punches. Because even if you do a bulky Fluttermanes, those bullet punches from Metagross are gonna hurt in a lot. I think Metagross is one of the Pokemon that are coming back that is going to be pretty good into the format with the right typing and the right moves, and especially since it got buffed this generation. Like it got knockoff, which is really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said about a lot of the Pokemon that have come back here. I think that Smeargle does have a time and place, but I think that time and place, again, when Smeargle was at its most dominant, it had the single most broken move ever created in Dark Void, and it also had the benefit of a closed team sheet format where you don't know what your opponent is running until it's too late. And I think with an open team sheet and no Dark Void, I don't think that Smeargle's going to have its return to its 2016 glory anytime soon.
yeah, it just goes back to Dark Void, right? Like I think it'd be cool with restricted. Scarf Spore, along those lines, right? Like Scarf Transform, things like that could be cool. Come
Mm-hmm.
restricted formats, but right now it's just not like. Oh my god! I don't know why I had that reaction, but it's like really funny to say it, but we complain about power creep, but restricted formats are taking such a high base power, like it's unparalleled. And Smeargle thrives in that format. Where shutting down one Pokemon is essentially winning the game. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, thankfully it doesn't learn Revival Blessing, because I think in a restricted format
mhm, exactly.
it would be
It
really,
actually be
really
very,
scary.
very good actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, like having to fight two Groudons, and then on top of that, like a Scarf Spore and things like that. That's actually sounds really, really interesting.
Two,
On top of that,
two,
Wyguard has been notoriously good in restricted, so
yeah, two choice specs Maridon. That's terrifying.
yeah.
There, like I think, like with the format, there's a lot of power creep, but there's some Pokemon with the buffs that they can make a resurgence. Before we started this episode, I was talking to Jake about Latios and Latios. I really want to use Latios in this generation because I think it got buffed. Um,
Mhm.
it Luster Purge now at 95 base power, and it has a 50% chance to drop the special attack by one stage is really good. It has Tailwind, and now with Levitate, it could terastallize into a Steel type and now beat Flutter Mane. And with that Levitate, you're not weak to ground. There are just so many Pokemon that I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. But uh, with with any Pokemon coming back, what are you guys most excited to see?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with my hot take here, because I think this Pokemon is truly underexplored, and I've been having some fun with it on the Showdown ladder. I think Alcremie. I think that Pokemon is really, really interesting, and I don't think it's gonna be this is gonna dominate regionals or anything, but I think that people have made some very, very convoluted ways to get a weakness policy set up on a bunch of different teams over the past few regulations. We saw Dusclops running Brick Break to set up an Ursaluna Blood Moon. We've seen, of course, all sorts of weird methods with Armor Rouge, and I think that Decorate is just a really, really good move. And I think that the stats on Alcremie are worth looking into. It's got some decent bulk to it. And I think that there is the idea of getting off a decorate on your Flutter Mane or your Urshifu is terrifying. There's a couple games I've had on Showdown where I got a decorate off onto an Urshifu, and it was just game over for my opponent. Like, nothing lives a +2 surging strikes, and when you can attack immediate, like, it does it, there's no turn cost to set it up. You don't need to Swords Dance. You don't need to run an item that allows you to Swords Dance. And I think the Decorate is very interesting, and I'm sure I'm going to be building some teams that are attempting to use it.
Yeah, totally. Decorate could be like, imagine Decorate Fluttermane.
I don't have to imagine it. It eats teams. It's really scary when you get that up, and when you can have your Incineroar outspeed your Alcremie and Parting Shot while you decorate into that slot. It's so nasty. It's, yeah, and then suddenly you get a free switch in from the Incin. You underspeed everyone while you do it, and you switch into something that gets a +2. Um, yeah, I think Alcremie is very interesting.
And especially
Um,
without Creamy's two abilities, Sweet Veil makes it so that your Pokemon can't get spored, and Aroma Veil means that your Pokemon can't be like attracted or encored or taunted. Aroma Veil is basically giving all your Pokemon a mental herb, but it has two great abilities in this format. Like if we see a Moongus pick up, Sweet Veil could be great on the Pokemon, um making it so that Amogus can't do its main thing, which is sporing.
Yeah, I'm very excited for lot. I remember there was discussion. I kind of missed it, but I'm very very excited for the Lotties. Like I'm very excited for these fringe mons that they aren't gonna be on every team, but they will be good. And I think Latias will actually be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
You can
Latias
eat
as a
the
bulky dragon type that can
yeah,
tailwind.
exactly. You know, it lives Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam from Choice Specs. It lives with Shadow Ball from Choice Specs. It
Wow.
sets up Tailwind, and the very nice thing about it is it has very very good speed to beat Lando Eye. It Oko's Lando Eye, right? It outspeeds most Torn. It always outspeeds Urshifu, and Oko's that. Um, and so it has very very good typing. It has very very good bulk. It has Tailwind. I think it has a lot going for it. That I think there will be a lot of fringe teams that have a lot of success from it, just because
Mm-hmm.
its typing is so good, and it's Latias, right? Its bulk is so good. It has really good coverage too. Is the other thing. Like Ice Beam is very very good on Latias because you outspeed Lando Y just barely. You Oko it,
Yeah.
and then you can run a team with King Gambit or the like, right? Like Incineroar or things like that, because now you don't worry about Lando Y. You just Oko it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yes.
very very
it has Aura Sphere, it has Alluring Voice, it has Draco
right.
Meteor,
Aura Sphere. Aura
Energy
Sphere's pretty cool.
Ball, Ice Beam, and Mist Ball. Mist Ball got buffed, which is great.
Hmm.
Thunderbolt, and then you could Terra Steel, Terra Blast, and then great supporting moves with with both Reflects or like Reflect like Screen if you really want to. Um and it could also trick. We could see Choice Specs trick go into this metagame, which could be fun.
Actually true.
Latios are going to be could be great in this generation, and I'm really excited to see those in this generation.
Me too. Yeah. I think Latias is very 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 poised to do well. I'm playing a lot of Showdown Ladder. I think I'm like top 10. I don't know where. And a friend of mine is in. He's like number 2 or number 3 or something. And we're both using Latias, and it's just destroying ladder. It's so good. Its typing is so strong. I think this game is gonna be really fun because of the fringe mons that are gonna be really hyped to play. The other really cool one is that Dragon Fire Dog thing.
Forging Fire.
That thing is
Yeah.
so sick. That one's really cool. Really good typing. Um, a Paradox mon, so you can abuse like Booster or the Sun.
Yeah,
A fire paradox mon that's boosted
Yeah,
by the sun. Like that's
yeah. They were
like
asking for it.
yeah, the
and it
amount of
has
sun teams that we've had that were just exploiting like random paradox mons, and
Mhm.
none of them were
and it
getting like
has
stab sun.
And like in the sun,
Ridiculous.
like it's a really, really heavy Pokemon. So in the sun, Heat Crash is going to do a lot of damage to a
Exactly.
lot of
Yeah.
Pokemon that because other than Iron Hands and Heatran, no Pokemon wants to take a Heat Crash in the sun when a lot of Pokemon aren't heavy.
Exactly.
And you
And
also you think about the ground and rock types in the format, and what they like how physical so many of the dominant threats in Regulation D were, and I do not want to be risking attacking into its new protect move. Like
Yeah, Burning
it's
Bulwark is scary.
yeah.
I think that one is very, very poised for success. Like I definitely think this will be like the creative part of the generation, and definitely the most
Mm-hmm.
creative, piece of time we'll have for a bit because we'll have restriction formats after this. But I honestly think
Yeah.
like for the builder, just go crazy. There's like so many good mods. Like I can't even argue about. Sometimes my advice to a lot of players is don't use bad mons, but a lot of these mons that are introduced, like it's not. They aren't even bad mons. They're good mons. They're enjoyable
They have
mons, and they're fun to
niches.
build
That's the
around. They
important
have
thing.
niches.
Like
They
like
have all have valuable niches. Exactly.
Because
Like
if you
it's
use, because like with Kitakati, there was a lot of
Mhm.
Pokemon. Like if you used Dipplin And the only reason a lot of people used Dipplin was because like either it was a fun gimmick that they wanted to try, or Dipplin's just a fun Pokemon and they really wanted to use it, which isn't the bad thing. Like I've used Pokemon a lot of times because I like the Pokemon. Um, with a lot of Pokemon here, like there's a good reason to justify using those Pokemon. Like Archaludon is a Pokemon that has a niche. Like as long as the Pokemon has a niche and it has its
Mhm.
place in the metagame. That's what's important here.
Yeah, I think this is really a format, and maybe I'll be eating these words in a couple weeks here, but I think right now this is a format where the really creative team builders are good. They're going to be eating well. I
Yep.
think
Yeah.
there's a lot of really interesting Pokemon with strong niches, and it's going to reward exploration. Um, and whether or not that shapes up to be something where players like Jamie Boyd are topping a bunch of events and stuff because of it. I don't know, but I think that the players that think out of the box with their team building are going to be building some. They're going to be reaping rewards from these obscure Pokemon that maybe people aren't looking deeply enough into.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One Pokemon I wanted to bring up, before we keep on rambling about other things. I know I'm doing that too, but one Pokemon I wanted to talk about was Whimsicott coming back, which is like really really impactful. Like we talked about how Incineroar is really impactful for the game. Yeah, let's talk about Whimsicott with that pranks when it's actually a prankster tailwind. Because like if you want to use prankster tailwind and you don't want to use that Tornadus, you're stuck with Murkrow. But Whimsicott coming back, Whimsicott has prankster tailwind, prankster fake tears. That's scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it can outspeed Tornadus and taunt it, right? Like, um, that's again, there's a Whimsicott. There's a reason it's a world championship winning Pokemon. There's a reason even Cottony has won a regional. Like there's something really good about these about this really fast, like decently um equipped Pokemon that's just got all the moves. It's every move that you could want with Prankster, except for maybe Haze, and it's got it. Like it's really scary that way.
The only thing that
And
Whimsicott is lacking is that if you want a prankster weather, then you have to go Tornadus because Whimsicott it only has sunny days. So if you want a prankster rain dance, then you have to go back to Tornadus. Which thank goodness that Whimsicott does not get prankster rain dance. But yeah, like you were saying, there like other than weathers. Whimsicott has a lot of great moves that you would want to have for a Prankstermon.
yeah, and I'm not seeing a lot of consistency in the sets that I'm playing on too. Like when I'm running into it on the ladder, maybe Sempra, who's way higher up on the ladder than me right now, will have a different opinion. But I'm running into a lot of wacky Whimsicott sets. I think people are having a lot of fun exploring with this mon right now, and I think that there's a lot of like encore going around as well, which is interesting. And I think that there's people are going to have a lot of fun with this thing. I think it's always an enjoyable mon to play with, and an annoying mon to play against. So
Finally.
I'm excited to use Whimsicott. Uh, I'm not sure how well it'll combat the genies of healthy meta, but I think it's going to be definitely represented, especially as you said, like being able to set up the sun for these paradox mons is definitely a good niche for it. And again, outspeeding Tornadus as a prankster user is very valuable, and may force a lot of Tornadus users to start looking at that Terra Dark or that Mental Herb again, to try to get around the taunts.
Because here's the thing about Whimsicott. I was thinking about teams that Whimsicott would be good on. It's going to be a great pair. Like, it's an amazing pairing with. Because here's the team right now: Whimsicott, Fluttermane, Incineroar, or Chi-Yu. You set up that Tailwind to make the Chi-Yu and Fluttermane hyper offensive. You set up the Sunny Day to make their moves stronger, to make their moves stronger since they both benefit in the sun. And you throw down those fake tears to make the Pokemon even weaker to their special attacking moves. And if there's a dark type that is immune to Prankster, well, here comes Fluttermane with those Moon Blasts and Dazzling Gleams.
I definitely, I think it's interesting that you guys have this take because I definitely have a completely opposite take that Whimsicott will be completely left behind. Like with the exception of global challenges, I think close team sheet is where Whimsicott's at. It's what Japan is on, but they're also
Mm-hmm.
close team sheet. So
Yeah,
I definitely think close team sheet Whimsicott is definitely superior in a lot of ways. Its moveset is just so much better. And the other thing is you can't tell its item. I think the important thing what makes Whimsicott a lot worse is you can't run either Focus Sash or Corporate Cloak very you can't run it very what's the word confidently. You just can't run it confidently in this format because on Clover Cloak, you're getting Oko by so many things in this format. You have Instant, who it's Flare Blitz if you don't have bulk, will just knock you out. You have Torn, all these other things, and
that
Mm-hmm.
is so true. I
if you use
think
Sash,
Covert Cloak rewards the bulk of a
right,
Tornadus so well, and I
exactly.
think I think that Covert Cloak was maybe even a mistake to introduce, but like in a
I
format with
fully
Tornadus,
agree,
because I
fully agree.
think that it's really an item that's built for
Yeah,
Tornadus, and I don't see Whimsicott ever
ever
benefiting
getting to that
from
level
it.
exactly because
Um,
you run Sash now you're getting faked out by all these new mons, right? Like, and the last thing is Whimsicott doesn't do very much damage. Fairy type damage, it's completely okay. So there's a phenomenon in the game where you're a stray of another Pokemon's success. All fairy
Mm-hmm.
types are now competing with Fluttermane, right? The issue is Whimsicott doesn't do any damage because every single Pokemon is now equipped to deal with Fluttermane. As
yeah.
a consequence, Whimsicott just isn't doing very much damage. Just the meta currently. So
Yeah, that's true. Nobody's running a team without multiple ways to switch
right,
in on a way stronger fairy move
exactly. So
than a
you know
dazzling gleam off a sheep. Like
right.
I think that there's definitely a lot to be said about its 77 special attack compared to
Hmm.
that devastating bleak wind storm that a
Right.
Tornadus can dish out. Um, so
Yeah.
that's a very fair point.
I just think Tornado is just better currently. I
Yeah,
think restricted formats will change that. I think that's when it flips because restricted formats do end up being the time in the format where it's not just HO, right? I think 22 might have been a little bit different. A lot of HO was very strong, but in a lot of restricted formats, it doesn't tend to be bulkier. You do kind of
Mm-hmm.
stat pad your Pokemon towards bulk, and I think Whimsicott might be much better there, where your encoring setup, um, your weather is actually useful because things on the field aren't instantly dying, right? Like you're not your Chi isn't getting one shot right now. You're setting up something else completely. Um, but right now,
Here,
I think Torn is just.
but
I think its
here's
typing is
my
very good. I
take.
think
I think my take could be like, like it has. Oh, excuse me, has prankster fake tears. That alone gives Whimsicott a huge boost in the metagame, and if you are against a Tornadus and they Tailwind, then you just encore them the next turn if they don't have Mental Herb, since a lot of Torns are currently running Covert Cloak. You just encore that Tailwind and they are forced to switch out. Like
okay. So I guess
because like
like that's a fair point, right? But
I feel like
my bad. I'm
Whimsicott
cutting you
and
off.
it's totally fine. I feel like Whimsicott and Torn do have their places. Like they fit on different styles of teams. Like there's a reason to use Whimsicott over Tornadus, and there's a reason to use Tornadus over Whimsicott. Because like just that like I said, just that fake tears alone really carries it hard. The only bad thing about Whimsicott, in my opinion, is that it doesn't have good bulk or a special attack stat to defend that bulk. Because like with something like Torn, it doesn't really have the best bulk, but it has like a special attack stat of 120. Yeah, Tornadus has like 125 special attack. So even with no um EVs and special attack, those bleak wind storms are really going to hit. While with Whimsicott, even if you did 252 modest, those dazzling gleams or energy balls aren't going to hit as hard. Like but I just think with Tailwind, Sunny Day, and Fake Tears alone, I could totally see it being great pairings with Paradox Mons, or just Fluttermane is going to be an amazing pairing with Whimsicott or with Chi-Yu. But yeah, I thought Whimsicott was good. I think Whimsicott could have a great impact on VGC, but you could be right. It could just be in Tornado's shadow.
Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting. I just think that it's a lot to ask from Zakar, right? You have to run a damaging move, you have to run Tailwind, and you have to run Protect. You're restricted to one other move, right? Like you lose a lot of the benefits of Whimsicott because of the fact that its bulk is so terrible. You're forced to run Protect.
Yeah, that is
So
so true.
I think
I ran at Toronto where I was 55th, and I ran no protect, max speed, max special attack Tornadus, and I didn't miss protect at all. Like, and I was not running a bulky Tornadus, and I did not miss the bulk. So I think that that's a situation where Whimsicott could never do that. Like,
mhm,
there's no
yeah,
reality where you cannot use up a move on Tailwind and
right,
Protect. And yeah, I think you're correct about that. That the move options, even though Whimsicott has a lot of them, they feel more
exactly.
limited because you can
You
carry
just get one
fewer.
slot, yeah. Like you
Yeah,
either have just Encore, Fake Tears, Sunny Day. Either way, like you're just not doing enough. And yet, like the final thing is, um, I think the main paradox you try to pair Sun with is Fluttermane. And if I'm making a Sun team, I'd rather have diverse typings and damage, right, than two fairy types, right? Like
yeah.
if I'm trying to lead Tailwind Sunny Day, with my Fluttermane, I kind of don't want to have two fairies in the field at the same time, right? I'd rather have
Especially one that's weak to the fire types, people are gonna be
exactly,
switching into to resist the flutter, right?
exactly,
So
yeah.
it's
So
like, yeah, you
Yeah.
set
I
up
want
the
a broad
sun, and
spectrum,
now you die to any fire type attack with your
right?
Whimsicott. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
totally
definitely think
can see
Tor is
your
kind of
point as well. I totally see your guys' point, and I do agree with you that Whimsicott's bulk is absolutely terrible, and its special attack stat is also really, really bad, where a lot of Pokemon that aren't even fully evolved match that 77 special attack stat. But maybe fake tears will have a place in the metagame if we see a lot of special attackers rise up. But yeah, Tornadus is still going to be the main tailwind in the game. If because like tailwind usually has like a 35 percent used in a lot of tournaments, and I don't think that's going anywhere with Whimsicott coming back. I'm Yeah, but you guys are totally right on that point as well.
I think we need to talk about the Brachiosaurus in the room here, and that's Raging Bolt. I think there's been a lot of online discourse about what this mon is capable of.
Yeah,
Um,
I think now's a
and I
good
think that
time to talk about that, and just round. I think now is a good time to talk about Raging Bolt, like you said.
Yeah, because that 137 special attack on any mon is enough to pique my
ridiculous.
interest.
I
Yeah,
have a Flutter.
Yeah, and again, like, uh, it's a protosynthesis mon like Flutter, so you like, people always go 135 Flutter is so great.
Mhm.
Why isn't 135 Ursaluna Blood Moon? And a lot of it is that Flutter is always running Specs or Booster. Like, it's always got further boosts to its special attack. Well, this thing can run Booster too, and, and this thing has really good bulk,
Mhm.
125 HP, 91 defense, 89 special defense. Like, those are numbers that are nothing to scoff at.
Yep.
Um, I think that
there
this is
with
a solid bond, but then again, it dies to a moonblast. So
yeah
I
there
like
with
going with the oh, yeah,
I-
you go.
I'm I'm really really excited for Raging Bolt. I When I first saw that design, I'm like I love it. I love that design. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's so ugly. It's a giraffe." No, I love giraffes. I'm definitely going to use it. It's just looking into like you said, that bulk is really impressive without 137 special attack. Um, but there's two main problems that I've noticed with Raging Bolt. One, its 75 speed is not that great. Even if you pair it with Tailwind, yeah, like even if you pair it with Tailwind, it's still going to be outsped by a lot of things. Trick Room is going to be great with this mon, but thankfully it has a Thunderclap, which is a great move for Raging Bolt. When me and Jake were doing the episode, I predicted that Raging Bolt was going to be a slow mon because they wouldn't really want to give it a signature move that is a priority move, and it's pretty fast. But yeah, that 75 speed is going to be hurting it a lot. The other thing I noticed is that its coverages aren't the best either. It because when you do the Draco Meteor and then you do the Thunderclap with another electric move like Thunderclap and then Thunderbolt, what is your last move other than Protect? Like it doesn't really have any coverage moves. Its coverage moves are Terra Blast, Ancient Power, Snarl, and Solar Beam. It doesn't really have any solid coverage moves.
Yeah, I think for me, Raging Bull is kind of I'm kind of waiting for it to be good. That's my opinion. I think it'll eventually be good. I don't think it'll be as excellent right now. I think.
I agree. I think the meta's still so
Mhm,
turbulent right now that I
right.
think even picking like what coverage move you want to run on this thing, or
Hmm.
if you want to like maybe the set people will settle down on has runs Yuri Impulse or something.
Right.
We don't know.
Exactly.
And I think that I mean even a calm mindset like setup could be really interesting
Yeah.
on this mon, but I wouldn't throw that into a builder in such a turbulent meta
Yeah.
where you don't know what you're running into. Like
Yeah.
when
Like
I
Mm-hmm.
I fully agree.
continue. Yep.
Yeah, I fully agree because I think I like your Ursula and Blood Moon example because they have the same special attack, and 137 is very comparable to 135. Very similar. They're pretty
Yep.
much all the same. The important thing is Ursula and Blood Moon's attacks are much easier to switch into. Its typing is not very strong. Like it's just simply not very strong typing.
Really?
There
I,
is a
Yep.
lot that walls it versus Flutter Main Moonblast goes completely unresisted the majority of the time. Like that's
Yeah,
very
and that's
very
the thing. And a
jarring.
lot of the mons that people are bringing to deal with Fluttermane
Yeah,
can switch into Ursaluna Bloodmoon. Like there's
exactly.
it's like, oh well, I'll just switch into my steel
I
type
fully
here.
agree.
Like
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
very 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 strong typing where he doesn't go walled by one single type, and Flutterman gets excellent coverage. Just in case you want to go even further with that. So I think it's very cool that we have another Pokemon like that with excellent typing. Like I think Electric is excellent typing. Of course, Torn Ursh, Dragon's very solid typing because of Rillaboom, and it just happens to be slower than Rillaboom, so it can abuse that fact, right? The fact that it was Rillaboom. Um,
mm-hmm.
Electric is very very strong in the corner format. I don't know what to say about the fact that it lacks any coverage. That's that's always gonna be annoying.
yeah.
But
I
But
feel
again,
like
like when it's got two really strong typings, like we've
yeah.
seen, we the format's been really focused on dragon types.
Hmm.
There's dragon's been really strong since Regulation D, and we've been starving for good electric types. There's a reason that like the ones that we've been seeing were like sort of rogue picks, like at Toronto with like the thunderous Therians and stuff. Like there wasn't there and Reggie Alecki is kind of this rare
Hmm.
item that might show up but isn't anywhere near as common as it was back when you could Dynamax it. So having another electric type with insanely high attack
Yeah.
is really enticing. And I'm sure there's teams that that it can be built to be really strong on, but I don't. I'm certainly not building around it right now.
Exactly. That's where my mindset is. Like in the future, I know I'm gonna love this thing. I know I'm gonna call this thing the best mod in the game, but it's not my
Yeah,
headache to figure out.
I love having something that I can switch into a Surging Strikes comfortably. That's something I've been looking for. Every team, a lot of people, like Jody's constantly been advocating online, saying the everything in regulation E, you should always make sure you've got multiple switch-ins to surging strikes, and this thing is it fills that role. You can switch into surging strikes for days on this thing. Like it's got that double resist. It's got good bulk. Um, but I don't think that I'd build a mon like this until I know what I'm building against.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's like telling Reg A players how good Golden Goal would be in the future. Like, they knew it was good, but at
Yeah.
that point, we didn't know how to properly use them on. Then we started discovering Nasty Plot and Life Orb and things like that. And instantly, this mod became so much more broken than we previously thought it was. We thought it was broken, and it ended up being S tier. So I think, yeah, it's not my issue, it's my mindset, but it'll definitely be an extremely strong mod in the future.
Yeah, I 100% expect myself to be ripping off somebody's set from this by Vancouver.
Right.
I think that like maybe not in Portland, but like give it a couple months, let the meta settle out a bit, and
Yeah.
I think somebody's gonna crack this mon, and it's gonna be really really strong.
I
Um,
just think
and
that
again,
I just think that Thunderclap is a move that has a lot of use. It that will have a lot of use because I mean a 137 special attack stat, and then you give it a booster energy to do it more. Those Thunderclaps are really going to be hurting hard. But like you guys said, there is a lot of mons that um do hurt it. Like it loses to Landorus and it loses to Fluttermane. But I feel like it could have a great spot on some teams. Like I'm definitely going to put
well,
it
that's
into
the
a
thing.
builder, and
Um,
I'm definitely going to like try to make it work because I like trying to make Pokemon. I like trying to take Pokemon that lots of people don't really have use for, and then trying to make it work. Thunderclap. I just feel like it's such a good move.
Well, that's the thing. Looking at it as a thunderclap, as a sucker punch clone, and thinking about the Terra Dark Gambit
Right.
situation. Like people were running Terra Dark Gambit when Terra Fairy Fluttermane is everywhere
Mhm.
because stab sucker punch
It's KOing anyone.
after a plus
Yeah.
one it's dropping everything like after
That's a
a
very good
plus
point.
two it's just a win button that you get to click, and there's few mons that were as fun to play in like regulation C and D as Gambit once you get a swords dance up. It's
100%
just
agree.
like I think that this thing like there's if you could get a calm mind off on it and start hitting thunderclaps, like it's gonna pressure your opponent in a way that's really hard to play around.
Yeah,
Um,
because we saw
but
like with a lot, the most popular King Gambit sets are usually like Sword Stance, Kowtow Cleave, Sucker Punch, and then Protect. So when you have two dark moves and you don't have any coverage, on paper, that's terrible. On paper, if you only have two dark moves, then you lose to a lot of Pokemon that resist dark. But we've seen King Gambit do well in the past few tournaments with just that set. So like you said, we could see the same thing with Raging Bolt.
yeah,
There
it's interesting, and I love that. Like I think Sucker Punch is really entertaining. I think at the last local that I played Sempra, so much of our games was just like trying to get around the Sucker Punch my like mind games of does he click it? Do I try to Swords Dance instead of attack this turn and hope he blows another Sucker Punch? Like what do you do? And I think that the Thunderclap creates that same sort of pressure on your opponent where they're afraid to click anything, and I think that
Mhm.
that's really powerful in any set. And I think electric type is such a good type fit like offensive typing that not a lot of mons are going to be comfortable attacking in front of it. um
yeah,
like,
because
yeah, of course, your Landorus Therian is going to be clicking Stomping Tantrum regardless of whether or not a Thunderclap is going on. But you know they're not going to be Terra flying.
yeah,
So,
like
Yeah,
that's what I was
no.
about to say. Like if there's a choice scarf Landorus Therian and it's locked into Terra Flying, Terra Blast, then Raging Bolt can come in and say, no, 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 I'm not gonna allow you to do that.
yeah, I think it'll really depend. Somebody's going to find the right partners for that Pokemon, and somebody's going to find the right set, and that somebody is not going to be me, but I'm going to be really happy when they do.
Yeah, same man. So
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just very excited that regardless, the game looks fun. No,
Yeah,
I definitely think they listen to us. In a lot of ways, when you really think about the monsters, like Thunder Cloud was definitely made to beat um
Ursh.
Urstorm. It definitely
Yeah,
was.
like
yeah,
it just
And you
had
know, we
like
have
because
like you
like
guys
if you
brought up.
have
I
a
didn't even think about it, right?
sorry,
Yeah, it's all good.
because
I didn't even think about that. You guys had like said that the fire type in Sun with photosynthesis. That's actually really interesting, and I didn't realize that. And it definitely seems like they're trying to push the game into more of a state that people like. Like I don't think anybody enjoys hyper offense mirrors. I think the
yeah.
game is more fun when you're bringing firstly a team that you like because you're using mods that you enjoy.
Mhm.
Um,
Especially when they're trying to make it into a actual esport. Like they
right.
want people to watch the streams of this game, and I there's a bias there because I was in Yokohama, but
Hmm.
like watching the finals in Yokohama was so much more fun than watching the finals the in 2022 when every team like every game was like okay through worlds
Hmm.
everyone's running hyper offense because Caliric's shadow is so good, and like there's some niche teams that aren't using it, but everyone's running Zacian, and
Yeah,
like these fast hyper offense teams were just dominating the format. And I think that when people are running something that's more entertaining for the viewer, I think that's going to help the growth of the game a lot. And I think that more people are going to be likely to it when they start to see, oh, that's a cool strategy that somebody brought, and they're winning because they brought the cool strategy. And I think that
yeah.
hopefully that's the direction they continue to move as they introduce more Pokemon.
Because one of the biggest complaints when it comes to watching competitive Pokemon that I've seen a lot is everyone's using the same mods. Why does no one use Pokemon that like why does no one want to use this Pokemon that's cool and this Pokemon that's unique? Why is everyone just playing the same Pokemon? And I don't agree with that to an extent, but I do agree it can be very boring when you're watching a tournament and they lead and both players lead Torn Urshifu and when you're from the player side, you want to win, so you want to use what's best. But and what's best is usually and like when you use what's best, you just want to win. That's your whole goal when you go to a Pokemon tournament is have fun and to win. And I could totally understand where the Pokemon company is like, okay, let's look at these Pokemon and let's look at how they can impact the metagame and how fun they can be to use. Because like back then, if you wanted to use Expanding Force, you would run Indeedee Armor Rouge, which a lot of people hated. But now you can use a lot of other Expanding Force users. And Game Freak knew how popular Torrent Urshifu was, and now here's a Pokemon that completely just shuts down that meta game.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to be said about that, and I think that the community doesn't quite give the Pokemon Company the credit they deserve for answering our prayers with mons like this. But it does seem that a lot of these are very much reactions to outcry from the community of
Hmm.
we want something that better deals with Tornadus Urshifu because they broke Tornadus by giving it Covert Cloak, and it just became real like they gave it every weather and they gave it Covert Cloak, and it was already a really good mon. So I think that um Raging Bolt is really good, especially getting it now before the inevitable Torn Ogre problems of late 2024 and 2025. I think that it's definitely something that it is worth exploring. um
Yeah. So I'm really glad that they made Raging Bolt. I'm definitely going to put it into a builder. I'm definitely going to see what it's going to do. I just think because I think it just having a way to be Torn Urshifu on its own without a partner makes it better than a lot of other new mons just for that reason. So I'm definitely going to put it into a builder. I think the last two things, unless there's something else that you guys want to talk about, I think the last two things that we should talk about is the Iron Boulder and Iron Crown, and then talk about the stellar typing. So first, I want to talk about Iron Boulder because I think this is a really, really funny mon. Iron Boulder is insanely fast, especially if you give it a booster energy. 120 attack is also pretty good. The 108 special defense stat is also great. It has really good moves, really good coverage. Like it has Iron Head, it has Poison Jab. Um, it has close combat, and then you give it, and then you have the stat moves as Zen Headbutt, and then Mighty Cleave, which is 95 base power and 100% accuracy. We finally have a physical rock type move that's 100% accuracy, and then it hits through protect. Like this Pokemon has amazing qualities of it has such amazing stuff when it comes to it. So then you might be thinking like, "Oh, so I wonder if it's going to be any good." And then you look at that typing and then you realize, "Oh wait, it's a defense hog."
Yeah, I think I said
Terra
that
hog, that's what
last
I
when we
meant.
were yeah, last time we were talking about we brought up this mon and I said it reminds me a lot of Baxcalibur in the way that this mon has stats and this mon has moves, but you want to click Terra on this thing almost every time you use it because it's defensively its typing is really bad. And when I run into it on the ladder, I find that it either dies right away or it gives me a lot of trouble. So
Yeah.
I
I've
think that
noticed
there's
that I've noticed that Terra fighting close combat just does so much damage, especially especially since Iron Boulder can learn Sword Stance. Like this Pokemon, like everything about this Pokemon screams amazing, amazing Pokemon, but that typing really, really holds it back. Where if you do not Terra it, it just dies to a lot of popular moves. But if you do terrestrialize it, that means it's a Terra Hog.
yeah, and again, like I like flexibility on a Pokemon a lot. I try to build teams that have a lot of flexibility, but then again, like going through Protect is just so good that it's like it's really hard to look at this thing and not think that
Yeah.
there's something there. I I haven't loaded it into a builder because I've never thought, you know what I really need on this team? A rock psychic type. But I'm sure there's somebody who's going to look at this thing and come up with an idea and impress me with it. Um,
Yeah,
but
because
I
like
think that
in the wise words of Wolfie Glick, he said that Iron Boulder is not going to be very good, and then he looked at that move, Mighty Cleave, and is like, "Oh, it hits through Protect. Okay, this Pokemon is S tier. It's going to dominate tournaments." Yeah, but I think, I think Iron Boulder I'm so excited to see what people are going to try to bring with Iron Boulder because like yeah, what you said, no one's looking at their team builder and is like, oh geez, I really need a rock psychic type on my team. That just fits perfectly on my team right now. Because like
yeah,
it
I don't know. What
it's
do you think about it, Sempra?
Yeah, restricted by its typing. Um,
Yeah.
it's no surprise. Like I think, unfortunately, how many months go down that way. But
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
again, this Scarlet and Violet has been a game about taking mons that have historically had troubles with their typing and making them more legit. Like, there's been a lot of Pokemon returning Pokemon that I think, like, I've Dragonite's been good in the past, but has been never been this good
mhm,
as it has been, and I think a lot of that is well, a lot of the time your Dragonite's a normal type or it's a flying type, and it doesn't need to worry about that typing, and but then mons like Landorus Therian is suddenly it's got a flying stab move and it's doing serious damage. So I think there's an element where Scarlet and Violet is the best game ever to be a Pokemon that's held back by your typing. Um, but
I
yeah.
but
actually, that's quite a fair point. That you make, but
yeah, but I'm not building with it anytime soon.
yeah, I'm still not
I'm
using it.
I'm not going to a regional with a rock psychic type on my team.
That's
Yeah, so
at least it's cool. Like at least it's
yeah, it looks pretty rad.
it looks pretty cool. So
And it's got some cool moves. I'm sure that there's a reality where somebody has some success with this thing. Again, going through protect, having good stats, that's good. But I think that in best of three open team sheet where you know your opponent's Terra, like maybe this thing will do well in global challenges when you don't expect it to suddenly be a poison type or something, and suddenly it's hitting you in ways you don't expect. But I don't think that in a best of three open team sheet format that this thing is going to be like an obvious choice for any team.
right,
There's
agreed.
one fun thing I just thought of. If you did max speed and then you did booster energy, and it beats a choice specs flutter main, which I think is kind of funny. But like yeah, like you said, in global challenges, it could be good. We could see some people trying to team build it because it looks awesome. Terrakion is my favorite Pokemon out of the three, but I like yeah, I don't know what to do with it right now. I don't think anyone knows what they should do with it.
Well, I think that that's in regards to Pokemon that we know exactly what to do with it. I think that Psy spam players will be very happy with Iron Crown. I think
Yeah.
that
Now we can talk
that's
about Iron Crown, about how good this Pokemon is going to be.
yeah. I think there's again, if you're the type of person, if you're the Thomas Hayden out there that likes hitting expanding force, then you're gonna like this thing because it's interesting. It's got what 122 special attack, expanding force. That's a
Yeah.
fun button. Like it's got good bulk. I've run into it a lot on the ladder. It hasn't been giving me as much trouble as I would like. But again, when they bring Incineroar back, expanding force definitely. Incineroar is really the thing that's kind of keeping this in check from my experience.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
it's just
fully
that I
agree.
built Incineroar, but it's like I'm confident to sit in front of this thing and hit parting shot into it, like
Yeah, I
and
know.
not worry. So
Definitely super restricted by its typing. It's
yeah,
it's not even
yeah,
it's not even funny like how unfortunate it is that like I mean what do you? I guess a lot of people are like, dude, you know how cool Tachyon Blade is? It Oko's Chimpow, and I think that was the only argument for it. I think
yeah,
otherwise, it does feel very lackluster, losing the same things that Expanding Force does, namely Steel types.
yeah,
Um, some of them are running Terra fighting, but like I'm not too like concerned. Like I'm definitely not the biggest Saiz fan, but I'm not crying over this
yeah.
ban.
I think I'm the same way, and it's like I've never brought Psy spam. I've always thought it's a matchup check.
Hmm.
Like you show up to an event, and the Psy spam players a lot of the time you play at them maybe round one or two, and then you
Hmm.
stop running into them because the only people they're beating are the people. It's like okay, didn't you bring your Psy spam matchup? If no, I win. If not, I lose. It's just the um it's such a linear sort of play
Hmm.
style, and I think that now when the ultimate Gloomon checks this thing in every way, like it doesn't have options to hit Incineroar well, and Incineroar any attack move that you put on Incineroar, if you're running if you're running knockoff or if you're running flare blitz, this thing's not going to want to take them, and it's going to sit there in front of expanding forces for days. So
Hmm.
I don't see this thing
Yeah.
getting around the fact that Incineroar is in the meta, like, and it's
You know
yeah,
who's cool though? I think expanding force. And what's the dude's name? Hatterin.
oh
That's
Armarouge.
yeah,
actually really cool.
Oh,
I think
Hattering,
that's a great
yeah.
update. I think
yeah.
if
I think
Sasfam players are happy
Hatterene
about
is a lot
anything, it's
better.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and
Much, much
that's a I think it's a lot better. I think you're right about that, and I think that the Psy spam teams I've run into the ladder that I haven't steamrolled are the ones that have a hat, and not the ones that are running this
yeah, they
thing.
definitely
Um,
had definitely like doesn't need 136 special attack, higher than Flutter Mane, and then also expanding force and psychic terrain. It
Yeah,
didn't need all that, in my
no,
opinion.
I completely agree with that. I think that it's one of those things, and again, that's what size spam players want. Size spam players want a team where you go, does my opponent have enough resists or immunities to expanding force? And if yes, then I lose, and if no, I win. It's just a matchup check. You either win against size spam or you lose, and it's very decisive games. And I think Hatterene just accelerates that because it does everything that Armor Rouge was doing, but better.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's
so
fair. Because like with
yeah,
Steel Psychic, it used to be amazing before, but it loses to Landorus, it loses to a bunch of fire types, it loses to Fluttermane. It just loses to a lot of Pokemon that are at the top. And like on paper, this Pokemon, like early impressions of this Pokemon was it's so good. It has Tachyon Cutter with expanding force. Like this Pokemon is gonna be great. But then like yeah,
but
like what you
again,
guys are
like
saying, but it loses to a lot of
it's such an
Pokemon at the
awkward
top.
speed too. Like 98 speed for an expanding force Pokemon. Like you don't want to be running it out of Trick Room, but you don't want to be running it in Trick Room. Like it's kind of one of those
Yeah,
bonds where it's like
for
maybe
sure.
you put it on a Tail Room team or something. But like I don't know. I don't see it being as great as a lot of people think it is, and I think that um, Tachyon Cutter beating Chen Pao after giving Chen Pao an opportunity to crunch or throat chop you is
Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely wasn't as good as people were hyping it
yeah,
up.
yeah, I think that it hasn't proven itself to me. I'll say that. Like maybe there's a niche for this thing that I'm not
The
seeing,
yeah,
but
sidestep players will make anything work. Okay,
yeah,
that's
exactly. That's the thing. Like there's some really good team builders out there that I'm sure have a broader view of this thing than I'm going to have, but um I don't see this as something that I'm going to be building around anytime soon.
Yeah. That's fair enough. That 98 speed really does not help it because you don't really want to do Tailwind against it because then just faster Pokemon. Because if you resort to Tailwind on this thing, then what do you do against other Tailwind Pokemon like other hyper offensive tailwind Pokemon? You just can't really do anything against that. And then you try to so then you're like, okay, well then I'll try to do Trick Room with it. But because it's so fast for Trick Room that it just loses to a lot of other Trick Room users. Because like if
Yeah,
you
I don't
go
want this
against
thing in Trick Room when Incineroar is gonna underspeed it. Like, there's there's no way to make it slow down unless you're running a speed dropping item. I'm not running this thing in Trick Room, and
yeah.
ev- yeah, I don't see its viability. I'm sure that there's a way to make this thing really cool, and I'm not. I don't think that it's one of the it doesn't jump out at me as this is going to be strong the way that so many of the other Pokemon we've discussed today do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
I
it's
think
just like the opportunity cost in a meta with such strong Pokemon in it. It's like there needs to be a reason for me to pick a Pokemon. Like that I
Mhm.
need to feel motivated to throw it on my team because you only get six, you only get to bring four, and there's some really broken Pokemon in Regulation F that it's like if something is even slightly suboptimal, I'm going to be very not inclined to pick it over other options.
yeah.
And when we've got like better psychic types and better steel types, I'm not
I don't see you running Iron Crown over Golden Go
or
over Golden
Hatterene.
Go
Yeah.
or yeah, Hattering. So
I
unless
think it,
there's
it does what they do but worse on both counts.
there's one more Pokemon that I wanted to talk about that I forgot before we talk about Stellar. Farigiraf got an amazing buff that I wanted since I learned about it. It got psychic noise, which I am so happy for. But with Incineroar coming back, that could hurt for Rigraff a lot because like knockoff like Farigiraf really does not want to take a knockoff, but
What are you
but
talking
if
about? It's a fairy type.
oh yeah, true. What am I saying?
It's always a fairy type. It's fine. No, I think you're right about that. I think that Incineroar does pressure it in an interesting way. I think that it's gonna take a bit for the Trick Room players to cook up what their new meta is. But I think that the blocking priority, I think that Armor Tail is a really cool ability, and I'm sure there will be a use case for it. And I do think Psychic Noise is a cool attack. I think that there's being able to block off healing is really, really, really good. There's a lot of bonds which are coming back that are able to run things like recover, and I love
Hmm.
running a healing berry on my Incineroar, but of course it can't get hit by psychic noise, so wah wah. But I think that there's an element to it that's really cool. I liked Farigiraf. I've run it before. Um, I'm sure I'll take a look at it later in the meta, but at the moment where I'm looking at right now, I just it's not inspiring me yet.
Yeah. Um.
I, I
Yeah.
I
To
think the
end
meta's
off.
still too unstable for a mon like for Farigiraf to really pique my interest there.
Hmm. And to end off the episode today, what do you guys think about the stellar typing? What do you guys both think about it and how it will impact VGC?
It's a good addition. Gives more options. I don't think it'll be incredible though. Obviously, the offensive use cases are the most spoken about. Like everyone talks about, oh, it's so cool in Champ and all that. But
Yeah, I
um,
think that's definitely the case with the way I've been thinking about it, of course, is that like if I want to run a lot of coverage moves, like if I'm a mon that like maybe I'm not around for 4 turns anyway, and I'm just trying to pick up some KOs,
mhm,
Stellar seems enticing.
right,
Like if I'm something that I'm sticking around on the field for the entire game. I don't think
yeah,
that that's ideal for it. But there's a lot of mons where it's like, look at all the coverage moves it runs, and it's like, well, I mean, it could be pretty
yeah,
good. Or
uh,
mons that run like Power Herb Meteor Beam that. That could be really cool. You only click that move once anyway, so um, I think there's an element to it that's really neat. But I don't think that I don't think it's going to be extremely dominant, which I think is good. I think that if they're adding a 19th Terra type, it shouldn't invalidate all the
yeah,
other Terra types. It should be
right,
something where it gives Mons options
yeah.
that
It has a
maybe
use
didn't
case.
have them. Yeah, and it's like I don't think that there's a lot of mons that are going to be this is the
Hmm.
staple type that it runs. Like I've never putting this on my Incineroar.
Yeah, I
Um,
can understand.
but
I guess like I guess it'd be so. I guess the use case where you aren't running a it's just the use case where you don't think you're gonna attack more than once is definitely low. But I guess I could think about it. You could definitely think about it on Chimpao, who offensively it'd just run one of its stabs. Sucker Punch was notorious for because you're in Tailwind, the opposing flutter minion is in Tailwind, and all of a sudden you just Sucker Punch it. It all goes with Terra.
yeah,
That could be pretty cool with Stellar. There are situations where you just need to pick up the Amoonguss this turn. That could be pretty interesting.
yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think on Chen Pao where it's something that that you're probably running a focus sash on it anyway, right? Like
Hmm.
you're not expecting your opponent to let you leave a Chen Pao on the field for an exceptionally long time without you having to click protect now and then. Like I think Chen Pao is definitely a clear example. And then I think a lot of people online have been trying to hype up Porygon Z, um, which I think is interesting because it does have a lot of coverage moves. So there's options there. You could like toss Bolt Beam on it there and use Terra Blast as sort of a better better normal type stab. Um,
Mhm.
And I think that that's really good. Maybe if you're concerned about those sort of rogue Terra types that you might run into, and it might be better earlier in the meta than later as things start to settle out. Um, because I think early on in the meta, there's definitely going to be a lot more surprises for what people are going to Terra into.
Right.
As before people kind of settle into this is the type that things run. Um, so I think that maybe Stellar or will be better earlier than it is later. I just think it's something that's situational, and it really is going to be up to the team builder to decide is this worth the cost to put it on my mon, and is this
Yeah.
worth not having a defensive pivot.
Because
But
like
again, we
I think
all
that's what yeah.
I don't see anyone wanting to use this on offensive mons like Urshifu or Fluttermane. They still want to do that Terra Water. They still want to do that Terra Fairy. I think maybe we'll see stellar typing more and more later in restricted formats. Like maybe when we get this double restricted format, maybe we'll see a bunch of stellar types being more used because like
I
maybe
could definitely see
because
that. I could definitely see that, like on Zacian or
yeah, like
even Pug.
Zacian
Someone.
or like Rayquaza.
Mhm.
Rayquaza might be good with that extreme speed, and then you still keep that dragon, and then you still do the dragon ascent stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think that might be a fair point. That it could be something that we have to remember will be a bigger deal later on. And of course, like comes restricted meta, Terapagos looks keen to be a good mon. Um,
Right.
which maybe today isn't the discussion for Terapagos there, but I think that it definitely gives a lot of options, and I think that specifically mons that would run Terra Blast, I find it interesting on,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that Terra Blast is a move that not a lot of mons are have historically run. Like there was a while back in like series one or two or whatever where Sylveon was running it, and it's like I think that the Porygon Z people have brought up a lot as a mon that could benefit from running it in Ursaluna Blood Moon maybe. So I think mons like that it might be kind of worth looking at because there is an element of well you're not going to get to defensive Terra in front of this thing if I set up. Um, but
Yeah.
that being said, like there's the huge cost to getting a drop after using it. So
Yeah,
um,
fair enough. I think we just need to wait and see to see what people want to do with this thing with because like I think it's because it's so complicated. I think maybe not a lot of people are wanting to try it. And or at least like they didn't want
Well,
to
we don't
try
have
it
to.
especially for
Yeah,
the next tournament because they don't know how to use it. So,
I
yeah,
think
I
the
think
mid
we just have to wait and
allegations
see.
online. I think the allegations online that it's mid are mostly from people who were had it set in their mind that it was going to be broken, and I'm happy that it's not broken. I don't want it to be well. I've got three mons on my team that are stellar Terra. Like I don't think that that's healthy for the game. I think that I think Terra's been a really fun mechanic ever since they introduced it. I've always enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed how a best of three game can change so much based on which mons the two players decide to Terra. And I think that Stellar can really improve the options available to good team builders, but I not in a way that's toxic. So I think it'll be good. I like it a lot. I've only run it on a couple of my teams so far, but I'll be excited to see what sort of ideas get cooked up when Portland comes.
Yeah, I think it's too early for it to be used massively in Portland. Because it's just so early to tell how good this thing is and what we can actually do with it. But yeah, I'm excited to see if anyone is like, wait guys, I have solved it, you know? I have figured out the best Pokemon or I have figured out what we can do with this thing, you know? I think I'm just waiting for that one person to be like, guys, I have figured it out.
Yeah, I think that'll be the case for a lot of mons, like it usually is. I think there's been other cases like Chimpao. I think Chimpao in Reg D was influenced a lot by the Japanese. That was a cool addition, right? Like Pow and
Yeah.
all these balance teams. That was a very very Japanese addition. Other staples,
Mm-hmm.
right? It just comes from methodical thinking, and I think we'll solve a lot of these mons very very quickly. I think it's very cool that we can have discussions, but I think in a week they'll be completely different. I think
I completely agree. I think that right now the theory crafting is always only takes you so far. I
Yeah.
remember I started playing in the Sun and Moon eras when I started to actually like following VGC, at least not actually going to events or anything. And I remember the early theory crafting. People were talking about like the the hate on Feeny and Cartana as if they were not extremely broken was everyone ended up eating their words. The general consensus in the community was, yeah, but Cartana dies so easy. It's so frail. And it's like,
yeah,
well, a mom with 180 attack is gonna do some damage. And I
right,
think that
exactly.
there's once people found out the sort of like Feeny Cartana Ensign core, it was really, really, really hard to stop. And I
Hmm.
think that there it's gonna take a couple tournaments there, but I think a lot of these mons we're gonna look back on this discussion and go, "Oh yeah, it's a no-brainer that that thing was gonna be good." So I think Portland will be a good start, but I think that by the time that we get to maybe like Vancouver or something where we've had a couple months, there's been tournaments all over the world. We've had the best team builders take a look and show their hand. I think that it's things are going to change a lot.
Right, agree.
Yeah. Like, that's really the whole thing we can say about this video. Other than Incineroar, everything that we've said has just been theory crafting. Like we said, Iron Crown is not really going to be that good, but maybe someone could find a use for it, and then it's just everywhere. But we don't really know how good any of these mons are going to be. So, except Incineroar. So yeah, that's really the whole thing. But I think we could. I think now is a good time to end the episode. So I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode, especially till the very end. I'm going to do a more further review into the VGC, especially when Portland comes up. I'm going to be reviewing that tournament and talking about it with everyone in the video and going over Pokemon that did well, especially new ones. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys next week.